Logic tape delay is cool if you don't even use it for delay. Like if you would just like, I would just
like
put it on tracks.
100% mix.
Yeah, 100% mix with like 0 delay, and you could. There was like a setting, like a tape warble kind of setting that you could. So you could turn up this tape effect, and it would like really warm it up. And
like the OG RC20.
Exactly. Yeah. I have used that plugin a lot, and PSP Vintage Warmer. I'd like throw on everything.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I had that back in the day.
Yeah, I definitely was like really tape happy back then. I should probably bring some of that mentality back, because
there's something about in having that kind of texture in the digital space that, like, once you realize that kind of a thing exists, it's very like, oh, I need this on a lot of things, and it was very kind of compelling. And I'm with you. I kind of have gotten away from it, aside from RC20 lately. RC20. And the J37 I really love too, that Waves tape thing.
Yes.
But a lot of times I'll forget about it for like large chunks of time, and then I'll go back and start throwing it on things, and then I throw it on everything. And then,
it's another way to like make your sounds kind of stand out or get fatter, and take up more space in the mix, which is
totally
a good thing sometimes if you want to keep the arrangement. I think it's easier to keep an arrangement more minimal when you use tape, because it just saturates, and like your fewer elements there are just going to be a little warmer and bigger. And
exactly.
There's a lot of like psychology behind music. At least like I think about like, how do I trick my brain into not wanting to hear more,
Right.
Like, how do we trick other people's brains into thinking that like, oh, this is like the focus of the song. This is what it's...
Right. Like a drum loop that's like perfectly locked to the grid can be kind of boring, but if you just push and pull a couple elements, all of a sudden you can listen to that loop over and over again and not get bored of it.
Exactly.
And finding a couple of those tricks can just kind of keep your brain occupied without having 1,000 things happening at once.
Right. Because I think like one of the challenges with producing is like keeping perspective on things, because like we know the song so well because we've sat with it for like 12 hours or whatever. So like when we add little extra details, to us it feels fresh and cool, but when somebody hears it for the first time, it could be overwhelming.
First listen is way different than the 1,000th listen.
Yes, and like trying to keep that idea of like, oh, is this too much information? And a lot of times it probably is, at least in my case, like because I tend to overload things with a lot of extra sounds that don't need to be there. And we're jumping ahead a bit, but working with Toby has like helped me realize like the idea of like too much information, in a new section.
Totally. Does he have straight or do you have rules of how much stuff to introduce at a time, or like any kind of like patterns there?
There's no rules, but I guess it's a general thing. Like when a new section hits, if there's like more than one or two like major elements that enter, it could feel like there's too much happening, or it could feel like too dramatic of a change, because like the vocals, at least with pop music, the vocals should like pretty much always be like the main focus.
Right.
So say you're like heading into a chorus, like the vocals are already going to sound bigger probably. They're going to be like different in that regard and like a different melody. Your drums might be a little bigger. So like how many more other new things can you really put in there to like...
Right. If you've already got a new vocal texture and a new vocal melody and some different drums, then you're well on your way to overwhelming someone.
Yeah, so then maybe you add like one extra element on top of that to kind of like give it, but maybe not. Maybe you need more than that. It depends on...
Maybe you need some stuff from the verse to tie it together, or...
Yeah, exactly. So it's...
And now you've already got too many elements.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It's that idea. I forgot whether it's like one or two elements. Like the brain can only focus on so many things, right? Like when somebody's listening to a song, especially for the first time. So they're already preoccupied with like, in my mind, it's like the vocals and the drums are like main thing to be preoccupied with. Like as a listener, you're hearing the groove and you're hearing the vocals, and then you maybe have enough mental like brain capacity to focus on one other element,
Right.
Like that really jumps out. So maybe it's the bass that's like doing something really cool, or maybe there's like a guitar or synth part, but you can't have like much more than that. That's vying for somebody's attention,
right?
Or else it's just gonna be cluttered,
right. Unless it's just like texture stuff or kind of mood setting things.
Yeah,
but even those can get kind of muddy pretty quick.
But those aren't like meant to usually vie for attention, hopefully, or like
exactly.
They're usually like the more subtle, like subliminal things, right? That like set the vibe.
Totally.
But like the focus point of the song should be like limited. And like I guess that's another thing I try to do is like I try to think about like what is the focus in this moment in the song? Like what should people be paying attention to? Like is it this cool sound that I added, like this sample, or is it, you know,
Right.
the drum fill that's happening at this point or something, and trying to limit the amount of clutter around what should be the focus.
That's a great kind of macro view
Yeah.
to remind yourself of on a regular basis.
Yeah, because when you listen to most music, you realize it is a lot more simple than it feels, you know? And there's less going on than like our initial listen might imply because of how like smart the producers and mixers are, like getting everything to fit in such a solid way.
All right, everyone, thanks for checking out the episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for music by this week's guest and more info on the things we talked about. If you enjoyed the podcast, please tell your friends, leave us a review, or subscribe on the Bandcamp page. That's makingrecords.bandcamp.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.